What we are looking at today is Orzhov Gates. I found the deck on one of the websites. I believe it 5.0 to League. Thought we'd give it a spin, see what's going on. It's a typical Gates deck. What's that going to mean? A lot of tap lands, right? We've got four tapped Black Dragon Gates, four Citadel Gates. Heap Gate is coming in. It's not tapped, but it's even though it's not quite colorless, it just requires an extra mana to turn it on. Basilisk Gate comes in untapped but colorless. It is a little color intensive. I mean, we want white and black early, and in some of the matches that I've seen, it's been a little bit of an issue. One of the things too, I'm going to switch over to pile view. One of the things when I see a curve like this, right? It's very much like an old rule of nine deck. And rule of nine is just kind of old school deck templating design where you find the two best one drops for your particular deck. Here would be Sacred Cat, Thraben Inspector. In the two drop slot, find the two best two drops, which is Rayfiend's Reformant and Scrapwork Mutt. And then in the three drop slot, you'd find your two best three drops. And then for non creatures, you have one of your non creature spells, one mana cost. And then in the two drop slot, you have a two mana cost. And then the last four cards are other, right? So you have basically, you're curving out with 12 cards in the one drop slot, 12 cards in the two drop slot, and 12 in the three. And it looks like that. But when you see that, it usually is running with 24 lands. So when I first saw the curve, I thought to myself, I don't know if this deck is running enough lands. In the few matches I played with it, it hasn't been much of a problem. I've had more of an issue with colors that I have hitting land drops, but it may need more lands. I'm not sure. What is the deck trying to do? As you can see, with four copies of Unearth and four copies of Recommission, and Prismatic Strands. It's trying to hit the Rayfiend's Reformant or Scrapwork Mutt, putting, you would think Prismatic Strands, right? That's usually your discard outlets. This deck will do that, but it's also trying to get Breathless Night, right? Ultimately, it wants to discard Breathless Night on turn 2, and then on turn 3, cast Recommission, and you've got a 4/4 flying lifelink in play with gates to pump as the game goes on. That's the ultimate game plan. So, what you'd want to see on turn 1, land wise, either Black Dragon or Citadel Gate is fine. They're both going to be white and black. So, you want to hit that on turn 1. Turn 2, untapped land, play Rayfiend's Informant, preferably because it's going to be a 3/2 if you can discard your Breathless Night. And on turn 3, Recommission. Going turn 1 Sacred Cat is fine. Even though it's not a Sacred Cat deck per se, it's a Breathless Night deck. But it's all in on the original. I mean, it's all in on recursion. Eight spells to bring creatures back. I'm not sure if that's exactly where it wants to be. The person that piloted it went 5.0. It's got four removal spells in cast down. I just don't know if that's enough. Like, having 8 copies of recursion is fine. Got some card draw or looting, I should say, with Informant and Mutt. Malicious Bugler can also help you find Breathless Night. I feel like in the games that I've played, I'm siding out or I'm trimming Scrapwork Mutt or an Unearth and trying to bring in Guardians of the Guild Pack and Chainer's Edict. So what I think it might want to be, and I'm not sure, it's limited matches. What it might want to be is, rather than all in on the recursion, is to have you're going to have things that you have to take care of, and just 4 cast downs I don't know are enough. So I think it might want to be 4 cast downs, 3 Chainer's Edict, maybe trim a Scrapwork Mutt and add a Guardians of the Guild Pack. I think it might want to be more along those lines. I'm not sure. Guardians of the Guild Pack in a Gates deck as well as Prismatic Strands, are really, really good. Prismatic Strands is one of the best cards in the format, in my opinion, right now. But this is the deck as it currently is. Let me get it back to its original. Sideboard is a little different. I added the Dust to Dust to it. It's not in the original list. What do I need to take out? Oh, Chainer's Edict. So for sideboard options, they're running Suffocating Fumes, which I assume is the Fairies matchup or any of the white weenie decks that are running around. Cathar's Commando is pretty cool. You can flash it in and pay one, sacrifice it, and destroy a target artifact or enchantment. For an affinity matchup, I much prefer to exile artifacts rather than destroy them, especially their creatures. I like to attack affinity's mana base, which is why I play Dust to Dust. But Cathar's Commando can be flashed in, and with a gate, you're swinging for five power on turn 3. So interesting deck. A lot more enchantment hate with Patricia's Scorn, which is a great card. I don't see played as much as I think it should be played in white decks. But we'll go ahead and get into some matches. I'm going to show one game against Ponza, and then I'm going to show the entire match versus a Reanimator deck, it was just a really fun match to play. But I hope you enjoy what you see. This is game 2 of the Ponza match. Right now, if I have 3 lands of any kind, I'm pretty much just keeping it. Leading with Sacred Cat, not that big of a deal. It's just what we do on the turn 1. It's trying to be mana efficient. I'm not sure. I'm really hoping I don't get the land blasted, but you'll notice that this is a Simic version running Temporal Spring. But I noticed that later on in the game, they do one of the enchantments comes in with red. It's a great start for me. Everything is kind of going okay. Some of the starts against Ponza can be absolutely horrendous. Monocolored Guardians of the Guild pack is really good against Ponza. Blocking for sure, not necessarily against some of the creatures, but it's gonna. You can play defensive or offensive with Guardians of the Guild pack. Double Dino into a boarding party is shit. Wasn't real fond of it. I think he probably actually hit the red for boarding party, but we can block here. There are some misplays. I'll see if I can see them when I watch the match. Too often need to be attacking first and then playing. It's just one of those things. If I'm not taking, you're taking the game semi-seriously. You're closing out your day at work and just coming in and slinging spells. But this is great here. We've got Prismatic Strands in the graveyard, so we can take out one of the dinos. And then really outrace, right? You're going to see Breathless Night shine here in a minute. The Ponza decks have a really hard time dealing with flyers except for the dino, but we can outrace. And if necessary, we'll just get in with Guardians of the Guild pack. But at this point, everything went fine. Wasn't really that difficult. Won the match, but it was more like turn 3 on game 3. He just conceded. Not sure why, but that was fine. This is match 1, game 1 versus Reanimator. Really is a really fun match to play. And you'll see what he does in the second game. That had me quite confused. But as soon as I saw Ulamog's Crusher, oh, by the way, this is the deck where I've switched out and added Chainer's Edict and Guardians of the Guild pack to the main. So we do have that little bit difference than the original deck in this particular match. But at this point, you're doing everything you can to find Cast Down, Chainer's Edict, anything like that. Hopefully they can just exhume once and buy yourself a bunch of turns. But as you'll see, that didn't happen. He had 1 card in hand at the moment. He had 2. Sorry, he had 2 cards in hand. Now it's a struggle, right? At this point, all you're really doing game plan wise is digging for as much as you can to find another cast down or a Chainer's Edict. Thraben Inspector is pretty good against Annihilator. I don't think Reanimator is really meant for this particular meta. The curves are so slow. The Annihilator mechanic is not as powerful as one might think. Obviously, if you have a turn 1 or turn 2 Ulamog, it can be a little difficult to recover from. But as long as you have some black removal, you can generally get through it. We did not get through it in this game, but we're on turn 6 at the moment. But everything is just sacking creatures, trying to loot, trying to find anything where I can find another cast down, and not give him enough time to find another copy of Exhume. Still digging, not finding much. It's interesting too on Heat Gate. There's a lot of times I look down and think it's just another gate and forget that it actually you have to pay one to add a colored mana source. It's awful. But that happens when you're playing in a rush. And like I said at the beginning, it's not like I have an opportunity to sit down all day long and play Magic and find the best matches. You got to earn a living. You do that, and then Magic comes later. But still, great game. Good way to unwind. Still digging. We got the Chainer's Edict late. The Scrapwork Mutt came into play, so it's a little unfortunate. Wrong side of variance in that particular play. Thraben buys us just one more turn. Still digging, can't find anything. At this point, you just need cast down. It's cast down or bust. Hats off to the opponent, though. He was so much fun to play against. Very pleasant, talkative. Just wanting to enjoy the game for the game's sake, which was good. It's a nice break on occasion. We have no outs here. We're going to move on to game 2. This is game 2 against the Reanimator match. And I'm going to go into a lot of confusion here in a moment. Should have led with Swamp. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but technically speaking, should lead with Swamp. And when he played Okiba, I was completely confused. I'm like, is this... when you play a Reanimator deck, there's not that much room in the deck for doing anything else other than committing to Reanimator. As you can see at the moment, where a little white source would be great, we have to use Heat Gate to get it. The plan is to go ahead and get Cathar Commando into play and take the enchantment out, which Nezumi is now. But then I thought potentially maybe we can just outrace this. And then my mind changed on the next turn or so. So he plays 2 more copies of the enchantment. And now I can't outrace. The goal here is to do what the deck is designed to do, which is to get the Breathless Knight into play, hit it with a gate, and recover. But you'll notice it's like a black burn deck. And we've gone from Reanimator into Blackburn. I don't know if he has Exhume still in there. I don't think that he is. Again, they don't have enough slots. Was fortunate to get the Breathless Knight, pitch it. We can recommission it. Feeling pretty confident right now that we've got the game under control. He has no cards in hand. Basically, we only need one swing with Breathless Knight to take over the game. I'm assuming he's not running removal. I haven't seen any in either match. But it gives a chance to showcase what Breathless Knight can do. If you do recommission it and hit it with a gate, it can get a little out of control. But totally confused. It went from Reanimator into a Madness Burn or pseudo Madness Burn deck. which we used to do with Pyromancer's Ascension back in the day. There was a transformational sideboard plan where you'd play Pyromancer Ascension game 1 and then turn into a different deck game 2. And if you went to game 3, you might be able to do something else, but we're totally in control here, and we kind of knew we were in control, right? Once you know the deck and what it's designed to do and what you're looking for, and in this particular case, you're hitting Breathless Nights and pumping it to recover any lost ground. We're gonna go ahead and move on to game 3. Game 3 of the Reanimator / Madness Burn. I don't know what he's doing at this point. I don't know if he's back to the Reanimator plan or if he's going to be the plan that he was on in game 2. The slow start still had me confused. Wasn't quite sure. Thinking he's probably on Reanimator for this particular game. Especially when I saw Simian Spirit Guide, I felt at this point he's back to what his original plan was in the first game, which is playing Reanimator. That being said, with 2 cast downs in the deck, or in the opening hand, or this hand, I feel like it should be enough. I'll take a third one, though, just in case. And you notice from the deck tech, there's not really any graveyard hate in this particular build. When I swing with the Overseer, I think he knows pretty much I have another copy of Cast Down. He might think I'm just swinging to get some points in, but I was hoping at this point we didn't have to deal with Ulamog's Crusher anymore, but we've hit it twice. He's brought it back twice, but we can race now. There's enough permanence in play and a Breathless Night that you can pump. We can we're good to go. As long as they don't have removal for Breathless Night, we'll be fine. Hitting that second gate's great. As you can see here, Breathless Night is a 13/13 flying lifelink. With no answers, it will take over the game. Hope you enjoyed it. It's a fun deck to play. I think it needs some tuning. Still kind of convinced that it needs more lands. I'm not sure, but we'll continue playing with it and see how it goes. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a great evening.